There are a lot of things to think about while we're slowly and safely trying to reopen various aspects of the economy. And in this video, I want to talk about some important things to consider while this is happening. You know, this is a really big change. It's a really big psychological process that we have to go through from going from a time where everything seemed normal and everything was open, closing many things down, and then trying to reopen some of the things that were closed. It introduces a lot of new things to think about, and that's what we want to talk about in this video, especially thinking about what brands and companies need to be communicating to customers at this time. And specifically, this is about reducing friction. We want to think about this in terms of reducing friction. Now, we've talked previously quite a bit about reducing digital friction, which means making customers' interaction with your digital experience as easy as possible. And obviously that's really important right now. So I'll link to some videos we've done about that below. But today I want to focus on psychological friction because there's a lot of psychological things that customers need to think about. Many questions that they've never even had before they have to think about. And many other ways that they expect about how they're going to interact with businesses are going to change and adapt as we go through this process. And I think a really useful framework for thinking about this is in terms of the notion of social anxiety. Now, the notion of social anxiety has been around, and in some cases it can be so extreme that it is a mental health disorder, and so it's termed social anxiety disorder. But typically we just think about it as this sort of colloquial term of social anxiety, and we kind of recognize what that is. But for individuals who have very extreme social anxiety, doing a simple process in society like going to the cash register can be very difficult. And I think this is something that we all can kind of relate back to. You know, if you think about the first time that you ever purchased something at a cash register, I actually remember the first time that I did that. I was like 10 years old or something, and it was at a Taco Bell, and it was just a memorable experience because it's kind of a big deal the first time that you do something like that. Maybe you remember when you first turned 21 and you first ordered a drink at the bar and you didn't necessarily know what the rules are and how you're supposed to do it. And so those sort of anxieties, which was usually a pretty small segment of society, but now because of this crisis, it's useful to imagine that a much larger segment of society is dealing with this issue. So you almost want to communicate to society the way that you would communicate to someone with severe social anxiety. Not to say necessarily that they have it, but that's a useful analogy to use. How would you help somebody who feels anxious about going into a store and making a purchase feel less anxious about that? And this is why the notion of psychological friction has come up. And so there's all these additional questions that people have now. And so the barriers between you and the product are what we think of as creating psychological friction. And it consists of a bunch of questions that we hadn't had to think of before. We have to ask ourselves, is the store open? Did the prices change? Do they take reservations? Is there restricted entries? Do they have new products? Do they have the same old products so that if I go there to purchase that specific thing, can I count that they're going to have what I'm looking for? Are they sanitary? Do the employees wear masks? Do customers wear masks? If I don't have a mask, are they going to have one for me? Do they do pickup outside the store? And is it reliable? Do they deliver to homes, and is that reliable? And is it trustworthy and safe? And so it's critical for companies to acknowledge that customers have all of these questions, and they might need to receive communication about the answers to these questions more frequently than they typically have. And of course, many of the principles of marketing can be relevant in that situation. And so basically, the goal is to communicate this information as quickly and effectively as impossible. This is an example of a print post from Walgreens, which conveys 6 major changes: face covers, shields, cues for social distancing, and so on. But the point of this is that the goal is to get this information across, number 1, to the customer, and number 2, to get it across in an efficient way. Now, this is a communication from McDonald's in the Philippines, and this is the sort of thing that we might expect companies to do. They need to tell customers what to expect to reduce that psychological friction.
For our customers, hand sanitizers are now available for their use in our stores. We will frequently sanitize kitchen and customer areas, like our dining areas, our play places, and our self-ordering kiosks. More importantly, we are reinforcing deep cleaning. For our partners and employees, they are now required to do temperature checks before and after their shifts. During shifts, we have enhanced our hand washing procedures to every 30 minutes. Should any of our crew, managers, security guards, McDelivery, Grab, and Food Panda riders show symptoms, they will immediately be asked to seek medical attention. We will not hesitate to cancel any customer activity or even temporarily shut down any of our restaurants.
Now, this is a edited version of a video that was a little bit longer than this, but in this very short 50 seconds, he communicates a lot of key information. What's the situation with hand sanitizer for customers and employees, that they are doing frequent cleaning, that they actually do temperature checks for their employees, they have hand washing procedures, and a really important thing that was mentioned was trusting that the business will respond appropriately. We want to know that they have the health of the customer in mind, and so if there are any issues and they need to close down, we want to trust that they will do that. Now here's another example from Children's Wisconsin Hospital. And I'll show you a clip here from how they went live on Facebook to tell really important information. Now this original clip was about 10 minutes long, and I've just edited it here to show some of the key points.
We will be taking questions throughout this Facebook Live, so if you have any questions, please add them in the comments. Should you need our facilities or any of the services we provide, we're still here to help you, so please don't hesitate to call your doctor.
You will notice when you come into the emergency department that things are going to be a little bit different than if you've ever been to our emergency department in the past. A few things that we're doing right now is we do daily screening for our staff. So every time they enter the building for a shift, we make sure that they're not having any symptoms. We are using more PPE than we previously did. When I say PPE, I mean personal protective equipment. That helps keep you safe. That helps also keep us safe. We are also asking that you come in with a mask and your child also wears a mask when they come into the emergency department or the hospital in general. If you don't have one, that's not a big deal. We always have some to provide to you, and you can take those home with you.
Now, one of the things I like about this video is very quickly they tell people that they're open. Like, that's a really important thing because things can change very quickly. And so that's part of conveying just stability and strength to the customer. Again, they mentioned about masks, and they mentioned if you don't have them, that they have them for you. So important information like that is something to think about communicating. And though in these two videos there's a big emphasis on safety, but it's not just about communicating safety. Again, it's about communicating what are the new ways to interact with your business. For example, do we need to make reservations now to enter? And how do we make those reservations? If we have to make appointments to enter, how do we make those appointments now? If we're doing pickup, what's the best way to order pickup, and so on. Another thing about those two examples is that they're telling the customer what to expect. And that's all very great, especially because in this time where communicating with customers is so important, then sometimes you just need to get out there and send the message as quickly and efficiently as possible. And telling that information, especially in an authentic way like they're doing, is very valuable. But we also have to recognize that a lot of information can be conveyed very quickly visually. And that underlies the phrase, show, don't tell. So if you can show the customer what to expect, then that information can reach them quicker and will be more memorable for them and potentially easier to understand. And so even giving people some sort of picture of what the environment is and what they can expect can be really helpful for reducing psychological friction. And that's always the case. Personally, it's always something to consider, but it's especially important right now. Now, here's an example from a local business here. They took drone footage of customers going through their pickup service. You could see that you instantly understand how it works. And this is a question that I had, where do I enter? How do I drive through it? And when you see a video like that, those questions instantly become answered. So now customers have confidence that they can go to that location and they know how to drive through the lineup. They understand how they're going to receive their goods and how it's going to work. And all of those things can help make it easier for them to go throughout that process. It reduces psychological friction, and it also makes them feel safer about how it'll work. It answers questions that they might have about how they're going to engage with that business now. So following along with show, don't tell, another key point is customers might want to know how long the line is. The notion of wait times might be even more important right now. For example, a lot of people are reporting going to a store, seeing a long line outside, and then turning back. If they can determine that information from somewhere else, if you can communicate wait times, then that would be a really important piece of information to be communicating to them. And this doesn't just apply for waiting in line for stores, it would also apply for home delivery or restaurant pickup or restaurant delivery. Because things are changing so quickly, it's useful to know if there's changes in wait time. And in general, I think that we all understand that we're trying our best. It's going to be really difficult, and there's so many changes in so many different aspects of the way society is operating right now. Changes in the distribution, changes in the amount of product that places have, changes in where they potentially get their product from, the way they package their product, a lot of different questions. And I think that it's reasonable to expect that there's going to be some uncertainty. But the critical thing is just to communicate with your customer that so that they expect it. So we're going to go into a lot more detail about this topic, as well as creative and strategic recommendations for marketing right now. We'll be talking about that in our upcoming webinar, and I'll put a link to that below so you could check it out. Let us know in the comments if you have any additional topics or questions that you'd like us to address during the webinar. Thanks for checking out this video.